guys know. Can you hear me now? Oh, okay. Regina has commentary about it. All right. Well, okay. As long as you can hear me, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone to our 10th ArchivesSpace member meeting. I'm Jessica Crouch. I'm the Community Engagement Lead for ArchivesSpace. I am so excited to have all of you here today. It's going to be a really great half day of learning. We've got a lot of presentations and a lot of schedule to get through, so I won't spend too much time up here right now, but I wanted to go over a few housekeeping items and make a few announcements. We're really excited to be able to have this meeting today in the Chicago Public Library and in this space, and the way that we're able to do this is we're joined in partnership today with ArchivesSpace. We're really grateful to have another community of practice in archives that we're able to come together and find this space, because it's nice to be able to be here in a central location that we can all share. So I'm really grateful to ArchivesSpace and how gracious they were to work with, and I'm really appreciative of that. So I just wanted to say that. And we'll also be having a box lunch at the end, and we'll be doing that jointly with ArchivesSpace. So please do stick around for the box lunch. Use that as an opportunity to talk to each other, but also the ArchivesSpace member community, and see what's going on there and where there might be some overlap. And if you happen to be planning to attend both this member meeting and their member meeting this afternoon after lunch, you have a very short walk to exactly where you are right now. So that's pretty cool. So, like I said, we're on a tight schedule, but I really wanted to make sure I thanked all of you for being here. If you have any questions or you need any assistance, just find me, find Bailey Grace Harrell, our new ArchivesSpace program assistant. You've been seeing her directing traffic. She's not in the room right now. I was going to make her wave, so that might have been intentional that she's not in the room right now. But please do go introduce yourself, or let her know if you have any questions. But maybe better just to introduce yourself and let me know if you have any questions. And of course, Christina Bella, our program manager, is upstairs on the registration table. She'll be around. If you have any questions, you can ask her as well. You can also find today's agenda by clicking the little QR code. You can also find it online and through our website. But if you want to find it easily, you can find it through that QR. And of course, thank you to our presenters. They'll be introduced individually before each of their presentations, but I wanted to just take a moment to highlight them and to thank them. Every person on this screen is going to be sharing what they're doing and what they're learning and how they're using ArchivesSpace, and I'm really grateful and excited for that. And I mean it when I say we quite literally could not have this event without them. So thank you to all of our presenters. Yeah, good job. But the same is true for our forum planning team. So I just want to say thank you to Bailey Grace Harrell, to Brittany Newberry, to Nora Blackman, Heather Lindberg, Skip Me, Jess Tucker, Mary Pedraza, Shira Kaki, and Stephen Shelton. If you see any of these people around today, thank them. This was a great team. They worked really collaboratively, really efficiently to put this forum together. So I'm very grateful to all of them, and I'm excited to be seeing most of them here in person and many of them for the first time. So thank you so much, and I'm really excited to see all of your hard work come to fruition today. So with that, we'll go ahead and move into the program. So Dawne, wherever Dawne is, Dawne, you're up first. So if you want to go ahead and come up, and get your slides pulled up while I read your introduction. So I'll let you go, just share it how you like. This microphone is live, you can also hold this one. And for Dawne and all of the other presenters, if you'd like to hold the microphone like I am and want to walk around, just don't walk past the columns. So stay between the columns. All right. So, and also we had some great titles for our presentations, I gotta say, and I love Dawne's. Total Control, using ArchivesSpace to track everything in your building. So Dawn Lucas of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill is going to be presenting on this topic. In 2023, the Wilson Special Collections Library at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill began preparing to move all of its collections, more than 63,000 archival boxes, 460,000 bibliographic titles, and 33,000 museum items to offsite storage due to planned building renovation. A barcoding task team established workflows for barcoding archival boxes, adding the barcodes to existing top container records in ArchivesSpace using an adaptation of a script developed by North Carolina State University. And the Barcoding Task Team also established workflows to track top container information and barcodes for bibliographic materials and museum items in ArchivesSpace. These workflows are appropriate for institutions of all collection sizes, but are most relevant to institutions with large collections and staff members who know how to use the API. I need to learn more, though.
Can you hear me on this?
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, hi everyone. As Jessica said, I'm Dawne Lucas from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and she just summarized my whole talk, so I'm done. But yeah, so my presentation is called Total Control, using ArchivesSpace to track everything in your building, and it summarizes the workflows we developed to barcode and track special collections materials in preparation for a major renovation project. So just here's an overview of what I'll be talking about. First, I'll give a little bit of background about the Wilson Special Collections Library. Then I'll give you an overview of our ArchivesSpace implementation. Then I'll cover the Wilson Library Infrastructure Project and the development of the Barcoding Task Team. And then to conclude, I'll summarize the workflows that we are currently using or plan to use in the future. And just for the sake of time and staying on topic, I will not be talking about our finding aid or ArcLight implementation, and I will also not be going into any granular details about the Wilson Library Infrastructure Project or the timeline, but you're welcome to ask me questions about that later, either during Q&A or sometime else during this conference. So just some background information about the Wilson Special Collections Library that gives some context for the rest of this presentation. The library was completed in 1929, so quite an old building, and served as the university's main library until 1984. And then ever since then, it's been devoted to special collections, and the vast majority of the special collections materials are housed on site and could be paged immediately if needed. We have approximately 50 full-time employees, depending on what day you're counting, plus student employees. We have 5 different collecting units that acquire a large variety of formats. As Jessica mentioned, we have approximately 468,000 titles cataloged in our OPAC, which is currently Sierra, more than 33,000 museum items cataloged in the Promisio database. We have 1 ArchivesSpace repository in which there are currently more than 11,000 accession records and more than 6,000 resource records representing collections. And I'll talk a little more about those resource records in a few minutes. Our ArchivesSpace implementation team consists of approximately 20 staff members from across different departments. That's across university libraries, not just special collections. However, no one's time is 100% allocated to this project. So for example, Library Information and Technology recently unveiled a new university library's website, and our digitized content is in the process of being migrated out of Content DM and into a new homegrown system. So although there's a lot of people working on this project, there's a lot of other things going on at the same time. So our ArchivesSpace implementation has been, we've been working on it a while in different phases. We have been using Archivist Toolkit since 2011, but only for accessions data. Locations information was recorded in a Microsoft Access database. And although we had created stub resource records in Archivist Toolkit, we never used it to generate finding aids. And to date, we are still creating finding aids using EAD templates in NoteTab and Oxygen, and we manage version control via GitLab. So we have the resource records, but we're not using them for finding aids. You can see here that our implementation has 3 phases. So phase 1, accessions, and phase 2, locations, being completed several years ago at this point. Right now, we plan to launch our finding aids using ArcLight as a public user interface next spring. I've included a QR code to a presentation I did at the 2020 ArchivesSpace Online Forum, and that goes into a lot more detail about those first 2 phases of our implementation that I'm going to go into now. But in October 2019, we imported the accession records from Archivist Toolkit to ArchivesSpace. Some data cleanup was necessary before that ingest could take place, but it was a relatively straightforward process. In April 2020, we imported all of the information from our Microsoft Access locations database into ArchivesSpace, with one of our software developers writing scripts to go between the Access database and ArchivesSpace. So those locations link to those stub records, resource records that I mentioned, so that all of the top containers were linked to the collection level of the resource record. We've added barcodes for materials that are in remote storage at the Library Service Center, but overall that's a small percentage of our materials. So we're using ArchivesSpace as a locations database with no binding aids, which seems not to be the way that it's really intended to be used. But we implemented it as a temporary measure until we could import the binding aids. I don't think any of us thought that we would still be using it this way in August 2024, but it's been working for us well enough for the past 4 years, and it was definitely an improvement over the Access database. But since we are planning to ingest the finding aids, we needed to make sure that the information in ArchivesSpace matched what was in the finding aids. This is a really basic example. So there's a folder 1 in the finding aid that you see at the top. So there must also be a folder 1 on the resource record. And you might think that this matching would be straightforward, but I assure you it's not. We actually had a year-long project to correct tens of thousands of inconsistencies, and a weekly script runs to catch discrepancies between ArchivesSpace and the finding aids, so we can ensure that everything will ingest properly when we get to that point. So just to reiterate before moving on, we've been using ArchivesSpace as a locations database for archival materials for more than 4 years now, but have not been using it to produce finding aids, and a weekly script catches any container discrepancies between ArchivesSpace and the finding aids. All right, so that is where we were chugging right along with implementation, but then in 2022, we found out that the North Carolina State Legislature had allocated money for certain infrastructure improvements in Wilson Library. Remember, it's an old building, there's a lot of issues with it. It was determined that all collections would need to be moved out of the building. Collections would become unavailable beginning August 2024, which is right now, and that the building would be closed until 2027. During that time, all collections would be moved off-site and would be inaccessible. And remember that I already said most of our materials are located inside Wilson Library, have always been inside Wilson Library, and we're not necessarily in any state to be out of Wilson Library. So to prepare for that move, in March 2023, the Barcoding Task Team, with me as the chair, was charged to assess Wilson Special Collections Library's needs for barcoding and propose a workflow for barcoding collections materials, regardless of format, to identify materials and create workflows and documentation to train others in the building to assist. So let me emphasize the regardless of format. So that meant not just the archival materials, which was really like my thing, but also the bibliographic materials and the museum items. We did not need to justify the need for barcoding, that part was assumed, but we did need to figure out the workflows. We submitted our report in October 2023. It included 3 different workflows, one for archival materials, one for bibliographic materials, and one for museum items. And workflow implementation for archival materials began in December 2023. So I'll just go ahead and give you a spoiler alert now. In March of this year, the university announced an extended timeline for this project. So renovations will still take place sometime, but we don't know when. So we're not imminently moving everything out of the building, but we are continuing to prepare for that inevitability, just at a slower pace than we were before. So I'm able to stand here and give this presentation instead of being back in Chapel Hill frantically preparing things to move. It also means that some of the workflows have not been completely implemented or implemented at all. So here are some of the challenges that the task team faced. As mentioned earlier, these materials are tracked in 3 different systems. And whereas some bibliographic materials had already been barcoded, no archival materials or museum items located in the building had been barcoded. So the only archival materials that had been barcoded were approximately 15,000 items already housed off-site at the Library Service Center. So they were therefore not a concern for this project. So that left everything else, and that was a lot. So here's the numbers from 2023. They're a little squishy, but they give a general idea of the scope of the project. So as of May 2023, there were more than 73,000 non-barcoded archival containers in ArchivesSpace. It's not accurate, completely accurate for a few reasons. Not all archival containers had been recorded in ArchivesSpace, so that would make the number theoretically go up. But then some materials, such as audio-visual formats, such as open reel tapes, could be packed into boxes, so that would make the number go down. And as of June 2023, there were more than 285,000 bibliographic items in the Sierra database without barcodes. That included some false positives, so some items, it included some items that had been designated as missing, or multiple items that were bound together in the same volume, but it also did not include uncatalogued items or items in the backlog. As of October 2023, there were about 33,000 items in the North Carolina Collection Gallery's Proficio database described at the item level. That number is good as far as I know. So furthermore, a lot of the materials needed rehousing before they could be barcoded. So that was not in scope for the Barcoding Task Team, but was in scope for technical services, which is also me. So we've conducted rehousing blitzes to make sure that materials are housed in sturdy boxes that have lids and handles and clear labels and all that good stuff that you need before it gets moved out of the building. And museum items are being rehoused by North Carolina Collection Gallery staff. Okay, so here are 3 different workflows. So I'm going to start with the archival materials. So I mentioned, we have like the 73,000 top containers, but they're already in ArchivesSpace. So in theory, that part should have been really easy, right? But actually, in some ways, that made it harder because the top container information was already in there. But how do we add all of those barcodes? So we considered using ArchivesSpace's rapid barcode entry feature, but using that just really didn't scale to our needs. But then we remembered that Taylor Walford at North Carolina State University, so that's down the road from us in Raleigh, had given a presentation at a previous ArchivesSpace forum about their implementation of a barcode and scanning inventory system. And that workflow included exporting a spreadsheet of existing top container records and then re-importing it with updated barcode information. So that sounded promising, so we decided to try that out. We needed to adjust some of the fields that we exported. Perhaps most notably, we needed to add the floor, room, and area fields to our export. We also added in the accession number field, since some top containers are linked to accession records instead of resource records. And after testing, the Barcoding Task Team added it to the workflow for archival materials. So here is that workflow. We adhere the barcode stickers to the boxes, then scan the barcodes into the spreadsheet, which hopefully you can see in column N. Then once that's done, we go through and scan again, which you can see in column O. And then we would run an Excel formula to ensure that the barcodes were scanned correctly, which you can see in column P. And then, assuming column P is true, we delete columns O and P and batch upload the barcodes into ArchivesSpace. So we're batch uploading in like big spreadsheets, and the export was a big spreadsheet, but then I broke that big spreadsheet up into a whole lot of smaller spreadsheets. So people weren't scanning into one giant spreadsheet. We hired 4 work-study students to adhere to barcode stickers and scan the boxes. And although some of this work was done by Wilson graduate students and full-time staff. So, for example, some staff members volunteered to adhere barcode stickers to boxes on the annual staff workday that takes place in December. If y'all know Jackie Dean, there she is stickering the aisle boxes. So here's a top container record that now has a barcode added to it. Hooray. On the one hand, I would be lying if I said that all of the archival materials have been successfully and rehoused and barcoded. They have not, but we have made a lot of progress and are in a really good place with this workflow. So the task team report noted that materials could be added to the OPAC if necessary, but also don't do that unless we absolutely have to. Right now, anything that is being sent to the Library Service Center is in the OPAC, and it has to be there for reasons. Right now, if we were moving all of the boxes off-site, we don't know where they would be going, but they would not be going to the Library Service Center. So we're saying don't do this stuff unless we have to. Okay, so the bibliographic materials, I want to note that this workflow has not yet been implemented. For all I know, it could change. It's also not the workflow submitted by the Barcoding Task Team. If it were, it wouldn't be part of this presentation because the Barcoding Task Team submitted a workflow for individually barcoding everything, which I admit is a little bit ambitious. But we had a move consultant that we worked with, and they recommended packing the materials in boxes in call number order, noting the call number range in each box, and then barcoding the box instead of barcoding all of the materials. So that sounds like a really good idea to me. I wish I'd done that. But so this is starting to sound a lot like archival materials, with a lot of boxes of barcodes that need to be tracked. Like we do, we track our bibliographic materials in the OPAC, which is really designed to capture information at the item level and not at the container level. We know that we can do it at the container level. We've done that for the materials that we have sent to the LSC. We have templates for that, but for the purposes of this project, we weren't sure that we wanted to create records for boxes of bibliographic materials in Sierra. But we can do that in ArchivesSpace, right? So the materials don't have a finding aid. They probably won't ever have finding aids, but that's okay because I told you that's how we've been using ArchivesSpace to this point anyway. So for the purposes of this project, we could create like those stub resource records for bibliographic materials and import container information into ArchivesSpace using the bulk import template that goes along with ArchivesSpace. And we have a proof of concept for a large collection of CDs that are accessible via the library catalog. These materials are cataloged on the item level in OPAC, and if requested, staff just knew where to find them in the stacks. The boxes weren't numbered, the box labels included the call number ranges, so that system worked just fine, assuming the boxes were on site, but not if they're going to off-site. So I asked the student to number all of the boxes and record the call number ranges in each box, and then we uploaded the information into ArchivesSpace using the bulk import template. We did that for these materials, actually before the boxes were barcoded, so this doesn't have the barcodes in it, but we now know how we can easily get those in. So again, we haven't implemented this workflow yet. There are some questions we have. How many stub resource records are we talking about? Not sure. How many boxes are we talking about? Not sure. We want to keep this information in ArchivesSpace long term once this project has ended. And finally, just quickly, the museum items. So the North Carolina Collection Gallery staff is in the process of rehousing these materials. So we haven't implemented this workflow yet either. And as I've mentioned, the North Carolina Collection Gallery uses a database called Proficio to describe museum items. There is a barcode field in Proficio, but similar to the OPAC, it's really meant to describe materials on the item level, not the container level. And the North Carolina Collection Gallery staff didn't want to try to get box level barcodes into that system. So the plan is to upload the containers and barcodes for museum items into ArchivesSpace using the bulk import template, similar to what we plan to do for the bibliographic materials. And the difference here is that we are only adding box level information and not worrying about recording which items are in which box. That's because that information is in Proficio, and the gallery staff said that no need to have it in ArchivesSpace too. And so just the questions here, similar to the questions for the bibliographic materials. How many boxes are we talking about? Do we need to keep this information in ArchivesSpace long term? So that's it. So that was a lot of information in about 20 minutes, but I hope some people find it useful, and I think there's now some time left over for questions.
Yeah, thanks, Dawne. That was a lot of information, and we have about 5 minutes for questions. So does anyone have a question for Dawne and this process? I want to know where you got that little icon that looks just like you thinking.
Yeah, that was Microsoft Copilot.
Okay. Hi. All right. All right. Real questions now, I guess.
So you said that, hi, I'm Mary. I emailed with you a little bit. I'm curious about the delay of the project now. So you have a lot more time to prepare. And so I'm curious, like, are these materials still accessible for the foreseeable future? Or is there like, you're gonna have to close your doors whether or not you actually have to move type of situation? I'm very curious.
Yeah, so for right now, everything is on pause until we're told otherwise. So everything is still accessible. Yeah, fortunately. Yeah.
Any other questions? When you say inaccessible for 3 years, what does that mean?
So our understanding is, that really means inaccessible. It is going offsite somewhere, and no one can request it. Which, we're kind of hoping, like, maybe now that we have more time to plan, maybe that won't be what happens, but if it were happening now, that would be the case.
I'm not using the barcode feature in ArchivesSpace, so this may be something that everybody knows, but so besides storing the barcode information, does it have any kind of tracking ability, or like to, as things move, or are you gonna change the location of them, or kind of what's the follow on or the functionality?
Yeah, so the tracking, and I'll say just as far as like tracking movement of boxes throughout the building, we use Aon for that. But as far as permanent locations in ArchivesSpace, I think what we'll do is use, you can create a temporary location in ArchivesSpace, and I think when they move, we will use that. Although also, like, I don't know if everything's inaccessible anyway, then why bother? I don't know. We haven't quite gotten to that part yet. But. Right, yeah. Yeah, and I guess we have so many questions about what storage would be like that I don't have a good answer for that right now.
Any other questions?
Do you think that you would have started this project without the kind of pressure of the infrastructure project? Or do you think that you would have just not barcoded anything and continued using your previous method?
Yeah, that's a good question. On the one hand, should we have been barcoding materials for like the past, I don't know, 20, 30 years? Yes. But we hadn't been, and there was no, I mean, it was always like, well, we could barcode these. Well, why? Like, they're all in the building. Why are you gonna bother like barcoding 73,000 boxes? So I don't have a good answer to that. I do know books, at some point, and I don't know how long ago it was, 10, 15 years ago maybe, books started to be barcoded, as they were cataloged. Before that point, they weren't. So, and I don't know exactly why that decision was made to start barcoding the books. I will say, if y'all aren't barcoding your boxes, now might be a good time to start, just in case.
Any other questions? So you have no offsite storage before this project?
So we do have some materials, at a remote storage facility that we share with Duke. It's Duke's facility, we rent space, from them. So most of the materials, from special collections that we had there were films, special format photographs that needed better climate control. But yeah, other than that, if you came into the building and requested a box, it might take us 20 minutes to get it for you, but we could get it, same day.
Other questions? Oh.
Are you doing all of this work in one repository or are you doing differently?
It is all in one repository.
I assume when you bring it back, you're gonna try to bring it back in an organized format.
I hope so.
Like clusters, like in record clusters, or?
Yeah, so that's actually, there was a whole separate task team in charge of that, which I was not on. But it is an opportunity to do some reorganization. So we have in the building up until a certain point, the boxes are in call number order. And then maybe going back, I don't know, 15, 18 years ago, something like that, it just became impractical to do that because we have to be shifting stuff too much. So now it's a little wild, wild west, like find a spot on the shelf, put it there, make sure it's accurately recorded in ArchivesSpace, we're good. So when things come back into the building, it's an opportunity to maybe organize things a little bit better. But how to do that in a good way, I'm not the right person to ask for that.
All right, we'll do one more and then we'll move.
Hi, Natalie. I'm curious about the barcode numbering. I was wondering if you bought from the same stock, because I know you were mentioning that Proficio database allows for barcoding too. So I'm wondering if different teams are using different number sequences or if you're all using the same.
We're all using the same. We get barcodes. So there is one department over in the main library that orders all of the barcodes, and then they just allocate them to us when we ask them.
Thank you, Dawn. I look forward to your follow-up presentation on this. Yes.